Okay, here's a sample program that does not have any functions in it. So I'm just going to make sure that you understand the code here, and then we'll put some functions in it. So I have two values, value 1 and 2, that I'm getting from the user. They're doubles. Then I'm going to calculate the sum, the product, and the quotient of those two values. And then I'm going to display, value 1 plus value 2 equals the sum. Value 1 times value 2 is a product, and value 1 divided by value 2 is a quotient. So let's just run this. Can put 10, 3, and there you'll see 10 plus 3 is 13, 10 times 3 is 30, and 10 divided by 3 is 3.3333. Okay. All right, so that's what the program does. Now when I'm finished with my program, it's going to do the same thing, but it's going to have functions in it. So this video is going to concentrate on void functions, and what we're going to be doing is looking at trying to put this together into three functions. I'm going to write one function that's going to get the two values from the user, and then it's going to return both of them back out. So I need to have a function that returns two values, and so I'm going to be using two reference parameters. Then I'm going to write a calculate function that's going to do these three calculations for me. It's going to need value 1 and value 2 from main, and then it's going to calculate the sum, product, and quotient and return them back out using reference parameters. And then I'll just have a simple void function to display the results. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'd like this code to be in my first function. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to write a function. I'll just call it get values. And this is the code that's going to go in the function. Now I notice that value 1 and value 2 need to be declared. So I have to think to myself, there's two places to declare them, in the parameter list or locally. If they are currently in the main program, well, let me rephrase that. In this case, these two values have to be returned to the main program after I get them from the user. Otherwise, they're no good to me. So they're going to have to be in my parameter list. That's the only way to get them back to main, and they're going to have to be reference parameters. So I'm going to put double value 1, double value 2, and if I need to send those new values back out to the main program, they have to be reference parameters. So that means I need an ampersand between the data type and the variable name. Okay, so here's my function. Now every function needs a prototype. So I'm going to copy the heading. I'm going to paste it up here prior to main, put a semicolon at the end. Okay, and now I need to call my function. Remember, if I don't call it, this code never gets executed. So my function call get values, and I'm going to pass it the two arguments, value 1 and value 2. Now this IntelliSense pops up and it shows us the heading of the function so that we know that we need to pass it two arguments, and this is the order value 1 and value 2. Some people, when that IntelliSense pops up, they like to just type exactly what they see, but it's there as a guideline for you to show you what the heading looks like. All right, so now I'm going to run my program again because I want to make sure it works with this new function in it. Okay, so that's good. So my one function that I wrote so far looks good. Okay, next I'm going to do these calculations. So I'm going to put this code in a function. I'm going to call it calculations. And I'm going to think about what needs to go in my parameter list in a minute. All right, in order to perform these calculations, I need to know what value 1 and value 2 are, and they're currently in my main program. So the only way to get them here is to send them in the parameter list. Now these are value parameters. They're only coming in, I'm using them, as opposed to sum, product, and quotient, which need to be reference parameters. Value 1 and value 2 need to come in from the main program so that I can calculate the sum, I can calculate the product, and I can calculate the quotient. These three things here are calculated inside the function. So if I want the main program to know what they are, I need to return them back to the main program. So you can see here, these are reference parameters. So two things coming in, value parameters, three things going out, reference parameters. Again, I'm going to copy and I'm going to paste up here. And if I want that code to execute, right, I need to put a function call in. So calculations, right, I need value 1, value 2, sum, product, and quotient. Again, I'm going to run it now to make sure it works. Okay, and everything looks good. And lastly, this should be the easy part. I'm going to take this code out and put it in a function called display. All right, what needs to go in display? Well, for the main program, I need to know value 1, I need to know value 2, I need to know sum, product, and quotient. They're all in the main program. The only way to get them to this function is to pass them. So I'm going to pass them all in. All right, now, again, I've got to copy the heading and paste it up here so I have a prototype for my function, put a semicolon at the end, and if I want the function to execute, I need to call it. Okay, and again, I'm going to run it again. Maybe I'll use some different values. Okay. All right. Should probably use some values that I know the answer to. So why don't I do 3 and 2? All right. 3 plus 2 is 5. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 divided by 2 is 1.5. Good. Okay. So a couple things to point out here, right? Void functions can just have value parameters if they're only passing things in to use. They can just have reference parameters if you're only either inputting or calculating, something that's going to change these variables so that the new value needs to go back to main. So here, you can just have reference parameters, or you might end up having some value and some reference, because value 1 and value 2 are just being passed into being used. They're not being changed. Sum, product, and quotient are all being changed, so they need to be sent back out. Be very careful when you start to work with reference parameters. We know that every function needs a prototype, so if you copy this and paste it to the top, you have a prototype. Sometimes students will start changing things around down here, and then all of a sudden they'll have a difference. Like up here, if I don't have an ampersand in front of quotient in the prototype, and I do have one down here, and I run my program, there's build errors. Would you like to continue and run the last successful build? No, I want to run this one. I'm going to say yes. And you'll see a message here. And let me just close. It's a linker message. And when you get a linker error, let me see if I can just make this a little bigger for you. I think I'll have to get rid of this message first. Okay. My program's just spinning around here for a minute. It's having a problem with it. Okay. Well, I think it was just running my last version. Let me just stop this a second. This caused more problems than I hoped for. Okay, well, I finally got that stopped. But sometimes, here you'll see a message, I guess, the message you're getting has to do with overloaded functions, because what it does is it thinks these are two separate functions. It thinks this is a calculations function with two value parameters and three reference. It thinks this is two value parameters, two reference parameters, and another value parameter. So, you have to really make sure that, especially like these little ampersands, you get pretty good at making sure you have the right number of parameters and the data types of the parameters, but sometimes you start to get a little confused with these. So anytime you make a change in the heading of your function, always make sure that you copy it and go up to the top here and paste the new prototype so that it works. Okay, and that's how reference parameters work.